Yeah, I've described it before as like a medieval style battle because it wasn't so much throwing blows or striking individuals as it was just bodies pressed up against bodies and trying to use our own physical force and momentum to repel this onslaught of insurrectionists.
Welcome to On Brand with Donny Deutsch. I am Donny Deutsch, and this is the show dedicated to a simple premise that everybody and everything is a brand. Every institution, every religion, every product, every company, every celebrity, everybody is a brand. If you have a Facebook page, you're a brand. This is our first show of the new year. It debuts January 6th, which is, of course, a sad anniversary for this country, which is obviously, it's been a year since the attempted coup at the Capitol, the insurrection, the frightening day. And we have a guest, a very relevant guest, police officer Michael Fanone, who was the police officer who was beaten within an inch of his life. You may have seen him on TV and some of the news shows, and he's going to give us an inside play-by-play of that day, and it's horrifying. Since he's been that police officer, just as of this past December 31st, he announced he's leaving the force. He's going to be a CNN commentator, but I think you're going to have to listen to what he says. It's just, it's gut-wrenching, and please, I implore you to listen. But first, we're going to do our brands of the week. Those are the brands that are kind of shaping the zeitgeist, who's up, who's down, who's shaping where we're going as a world, as a society, as a mass of humanity. Let's get right to it. First up, brand down for Republicans. 40% of Republicans say violence against government is justified. This is a Washington Post survey. 1 year after the deadly attack at U.S. Capitol, Republicans and Democrats are deeply divided over what happened that day. 34% of all Americans say violent action against government is justified at some point. It breaks down that 40% of Republicans and 23% of Democrats. So almost 1 in 2 Republicans think violence is justified against the government. And we wonder why January 6th happened, and we wonder why Donald Trump happened. No, we don't. I have to really wonder. Okay, brand down for Marjorie Taylor Greene, who wants to bar Democrats who move to red states from voting. So if you're somebody who's moving to red states from voting. So, for instance, if you move from California to Arkansas, she thinks that you shouldn't be able to vote for a period of time because you're just a plant. You're a blue person coming to a red state. As long as we're talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene, huge brand down. She has been suspended from Twitter permanently for spreading misinformation on COVID. They've permanently suspended their account for misinformation about the vaccine. This is, of course, the woman that thinks the country should be divided in two, and just a heinous individual. But Marjorie Taylor Greene, we will no longer be hearing from you from Twitter, and that's a good thing. A brand up for JP Morgan Chase and Citigroup, two of America's biggest banks, returned to remote work to start 2022. Omicron is messing with the back to office plans, and these are two leading financial institutions. And, these were some of the folks that also basically were saying, it's time to get back to work when it was time to get back to work. And now they're saying it's time to maybe not get back to work. So I give any companies playing it extra safe at this point. And I'm somebody who's come out in the show and talked a lot about how important it is to be at work. And sometimes we can codify our workers, but right now it's better to be safe. Stay from home. Brand down for rapid at-home tests. The FDA says rapid tests at home have reduced sensitivity for Omicron. According to a warning issued on Tuesday, at-home rapid antigen tests have a reduced sensitivity for Omicron. This is what flies in face of, we've heard a lot lately on how, the at-home tests now, the most recent at-home tests are like 99% accurate. And now this flies in the face of it, particularly picking up on Omicron. So get those PCR tests. Brand down for New Year's resolutions. Fewer Americans are making New Year's resolutions this year. That's interesting, coming off the year and the years we've had. Percentage of Americans who say they make New Year's resolutions for 2022 has dropped from the past 2 years. Just 29% of Americans say we'll be making New Year's resolutions, down from 43% a year ago. I wonder what the psychology of that is. That's an interesting kind of thing that we kind of coming off a weird year, obviously still, in the throes of COVID. We came out of it, but less news, significantly less New Year's resolutions. That's just interesting. Speaking of brand down, 2021, half of Americans think 2021 was the worst year of their lives. The survey of 1,000 adults conducted by one poll aimed to get to the end of the year reflection on many subjects and found that 53% found 2021 has been a very unpleasant year for them. However, 7 in 10 still have high hopes that 2022 will be an improvement over the previous year. So I guess that's the same thing. When things are low, you got nowhere to go put up. But that's kind of sad that people are feeling that way. And no surprise, obviously, with what's going on. Brand up for minimum wage. More than half of U.S. states will raise the minimum wage in 2022. But the good news also is employers are hiking pay faster. 26 states and Washington will raise their minimum wages. But only California and parts of New York will mandate hourly pay of at least $15. So New York and California are leading the charge. Wages and salaries increased for 4.2% for the 12 months ended in September 2021. That's all great. And then you go to the stock market's up 20%. So, the rich are still even getting richer, even though the wage is going, but that's still certainly going in the right direction. A big brand up for Chief Justice John Roberts, and it tells us something. He is, of course, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. He tops all federal leaders in Americans' approval. He has a 60% approval rating from Gallup, and they're handling him as a role. Only 2 other leaders on the list are reviewed positively by majorities of Americans: the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell at 53%. And Dr. Fauci at 52%. I think that what that says, it's interesting. John Roberts has really come across. He started out as a conservative judge. I'm not saying he's not a conservative judge, but that's his background. But he's been kind of split down the middle. He seems to be a voice of reason on the court, not necessarily just going ideologically each time with a conservative or a liberal bent, but kind of just coming of the moment for what the issue is, and Americans responding to that. And I think that should tell politicians something, that we don't want, forget what the media says and forget the polarization we see on Fox and on MSNBC. Then in reality, most of us are a wardrobe of different issues. We stand on different places. We're not completely red or completely blue. I know I'm not. And it's interesting that he has the highest ranking of any public official, so no surprise there. Brand up for our new mayor of New York, Eric Adams. He's 5 or 6 days into the job. He's got a great energy about him. People love him already. He says we will not be controlled by crises in his first speech. He said past 2 years have been a continual crisis. He says this will be our New Year's resolution. We will not be controlled by crisis. He's a guy from Jamaica, Queens. He's a former cop, former Brooklyn president. He's just what the city needs right now. He represents a diverse city. As a black man, and he just seems to have the right pitch for what the city reads now, a real cheerleader. I mean, de Blasio was a very, very unpopular mayor in the show, came for a very good reason. A brand, I'm going to give him a brand up for Andy Cohen, on my friend Andy Cohen on New Year's Eve. He was hosting his show on CNN with Anderson Cooper, and he got a little snookered, as they said. He said he had one too many. And he really went off on de Blasio, calling him the crappiest mayor in New York and sayonara sucker. And like Anderson Cooper was going like, whoa, buddy, slow down. You're not supposed to be doing this in this happy time saying sayonara sucker. And afterwards, Andy said that maybe he had a few too many libations and he wouldn't have gone on that rant. But no harm, no foul. Brand up for Spider-Man. It seems if the blockbusters are back. Spider-Man No Way Home, box office domination, crosses over $600 million in North America. And we haven't in a couple of years seen numbers like that. It's already crossed over $1.37 billion, making it 12th highest grossing movie of all time internationally. It's going to continue to break records, and it just shows, people will come out for something special, and Spider-Man seems to be something special. Brand down for Adele. I love Adele, but it's interesting. Her album sales in 2021 are down 82% from 2015. This is her first record since then. Her 30 album was supposed to be a monster. So it turns out it's done well, but nowhere compared. 30 sold 1.4 million copies from its release on November 19th. By comparison, previous album 25 sold 3.8 million in its first week, the same period. So big drop down, but Adele's still selling some music. Sad sad brand down for Antonio Brown. You probably all saw it by now. The Bucs receiver who, for whatever reason, in the middle of a game, didn't like that he was being benched and just ran into the end zone, took his shirt off, took his pads off, gave a peace sign to the crowd, the opposing crowd, and just deserted his team. And of course, he was thrown off the team immediately after that. This is a guy who's had nothing but problems, and he needs help. Sometimes with talent, we overlook things, and you're not doing that talented player a favor. This man should have gotten help long ago. It was a very sad display. Brand up for Walmart. Walmart drew $1 and $4 was spent on click and collect. So that's people who are kind of buying online but going to pick up. So everybody who bought online and picked up curbside in this country, that includes everything. $1 and $4 went to Walmart. There you go. That translates to an estimated $20 billion in sales. Okay, what's the world's most popular website? Well, it was Google, and it's been dethroned by TikTok. There you go. That's what you need to know about our world right now. The number one website is TikTok. Here are the top 10. TikTok, Google, no surprises here. Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, YouTube, Twitter, and WhatsApp. But TikTok is number one. Brand up for Jeff Bezos. He was spotted in St. Bart's, and he's all buff. Now, I interviewed Jeff Bezos many years ago on my CNBC show, and he was kind of a dweeby guy, farthest thing from buff. Seems that $200 billion has kind of pointed him to the right gyms or the right trainers. And I think that does more for his brand. If you said to me, okay, Jeff Bezos, dweeby, $300 billion versus Jeff Bezos, buff, $200 billion, I think the buff $200 billion is better for his brand. It just kind of is this, wow, this guy's kind of got it all going on. So good for Jeff Bezos. Gotta love it. Chicken thighs. It seems if short supplies are a brand up for chicken thighs, which I love. Short supplies are escalating costs of chicken breasts and wings, or leading restaurants to add thighs to other dark poultry meat to the menus and entrees. There's been a 15% in boneless thigh sales. So you're going to see a lot more boneless thighs in your chicken repertoires in restaurant than you will wings and breasts. And I'm a thigh guy. I mean that in terms of chickens, of course. This is a kid's show. Two great brand ups for two great Americans we lost this past week. Betty White, 99 years old. How do you not love Betty White? I have a personal experience, wonderful experience with Betty White. In 1980, I went on the Match Game. Remember the Match Game with Gene Rayburn game show? And it was like 6 celebrities, and you'd try and match with one of them. And I matched the super match with Betty White, won $5,000 in 1980. That's a lot of money today, but that was a lot of money back then. And Betty White and I, we hugged, and boy, you just got to love Betty White. What can you say? And well, her brand was amazing. People in my generation knew her from Mary Tyler Moore Show, playing Suzanne Evans. And then she did a Snickers commercial in 2010 where she in a football and she was tackling people or getting tackled, I forgot. And it kind of introduced to a whole new generation, but they ain't making Betty Whites anymore. So a huge brand up. And also to the great John Madden, who passed away at 85. John Madden, the greatest football sportscaster of all time. Of course, they have the entire game named after him, the Madden game. Just a folk figure, beloved, great coach. And these are two great Americans that passed this past week or so. So we salute them. And those are our brands of the week. Now let's get to our interview with former police officer Michael Fanone, who will give you a play-by-play of that horrific day in the Capitol as he was defending it and he almost lost his life. I want to talk about Indeed. And if you're doing any hiring whatsoever, you need to go to Indeed. There's so much going on in the world right now. You can't afford to miss a beat. With Indeed, hiring the right candidate for the first time is so easy. Your business can focus instead on making headlines. If you're hiring, you need Indeed. Indeed, hiring a partner that gets you what you really want, a short list of quality candidates as fast as possible, because you can do it all. Attract, interview, and then hire all on Indeed. Don't struggle or find your own quality candidates. Indeed can help you hire the right people right now. Look, hiring the right people is the most important thing you do. I ran a big business, and Indeed is really going to help you. Partners we do on every step of the hiring process, so you can find talent with the skills you need through tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. Thanks to Indeed's virtual interviews, you can message, schedule, and interview top talent seamlessly, all in one place with Indeed. No need to install anything extra. Indeed's virtual interviews work from your browser. Interview virtually with no downloads, plugins, or purchases. You can do it all in one place with Indeed. Get started right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/onbrand. Get a $75 credit at Indeed.com/onbrand. Indeed.com/onbrand. Offer valid through December 31st. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. I'm telling you, if you're hiring anybody, go to Indeed. Hey, I want to talk to you about Blinkist. If you're a reader and you like to read a lot and you like to get the biggest bang for your buck, Blinkist is where you go. Basically, in its simplest description is you can get the entire essence of a book in 15 minutes. In other words, now you want to see a book because you don't really want to read it, but you want to kind of know what it's about to be able to talk about it. You get the whole thing in 15 minutes. On the other hand, if you're really curious about a book, but you don't know if you want to invest the time, you go through it. You don't have to go through the whole thing, but you get that in 15 minutes, you get the entire book. And I think for our kind of really quick generation today, it's really smart. It's below some of the most popular titles in money and investments: Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich, Your Best Year Ever, High Performance Habits, The Snowball, Unshakable. So let's say, oh, I heard Unshakable is really good, but I'm not sure if I want to invest hours into it. You give that 15 minutes, you get an essence of it. You either go more into the book or you go, oh, I got the book. So I think it's great. Other business books: 7 Strategies for Wealth and Happiness, The Intelligent Investor, Money Master the Game, The 10-Time Rule. This is a really cool thing. So I want you to go to Blinkist. Blinkist is here to empower people to grow personally and professionally by discovering content that inspires, motivates, and gives new perspectives on their lives and on the world in 2022. Blinkist has the perfect content to help you be a better, smarter, and more knowledgeable you in 2022. Right now, Blinkist is a special offer just for our audience. Go to Blinkist.com/Donny to start your free 7-day trial and get 25% off Blinkist premium membership. That's Blinkist, spelled Blinkist, Blinkist.com/Donny to get 25% off and a 7-day free trial. Blinkist.com/Donny. I'm joined by an American hero, police officer, DC police officer Michael Fanone, who was one of the officers defending the Capitol on January 6th during the insurrection, one of the worst days in our country's history. He almost lost his life. I say hero, and I don't say it lightly, and because he was. And he was one of 30 DC officers in a tunnel against 10,000 people defending the Capitol, putting his life on the line. He did put his life on the line and has suffered since. We're going to hear his story today, and it's a privilege to introduce Officer Michael Fanone. Welcome, officer.
How you doing, buddy?
How you doing,
Thank
man?
you again. I appreciate you having me on. But I don't know about the American hero part, man. That's quite a compliment, but a little bit much for me.
Well, it's the truth, and this country, most of this country feels this way. How you feeling, first of all? I know you're back at work, not out in the field, but back at work. How you feeling?
I mean, I'm hanging in there. I'm kind of back to work. I'm still on limited duty. So I'm not back to full duty yet. And they've got me in the IT department, which, I don't know. Never saw myself as an IT guy, but yet here I am.
Yeah, you are. Okay. Well, that's for now. And it's still service, and you will get back in the field, and we will be a better country because of it. I want to. People have obviously seen, or I would say the majority of our viewers have seen and heard the story, footage, whether it's watching on the news or HBO or any of the other documentaries. But we'd love to hear it directly from you about that day that changed the course of American history, that day that you are forever ingrained in as a part of it, and obviously on the good side of things. So let's start with that morning. It's January 6th. You're an undercover narcotics officer. Start your day for me.
Yeah, so that day started off just like pretty much any other. I'm an early riser. I'm always training for hunting season, so I was up around 5 a.m. Went in, got a workout in, got back home and started to get my stuff together, getting ready for work. That was probably shortly before noon. I started getting phone calls and text messages from my partner, Jimmy Albright, who was communicating with some guys who were already at work, who were just describing the crowd size at the White House. And then I was also listening to some of the speeches that were taking place some of the rhetoric that was being used, I knew that there was a strong potential for violence that day.
And you went over there on your own. You were not instructed by a commander to go over. You guys made the decision, all right, let's get the hell over there.
That's correct. Again, I work in a narcotics unit, tasked primarily with investigating drug trafficking and violent crimes. So crowd control is not exactly something that's in our forte. But we could tell how bad things were. And so we went, quite a few officers self-deployed that day.
So you pull up there. What do you see? You pull up, what is your first impression and image of everything?
So for people who aren't familiar with the Capitol complex, there's an exterior perimeter that extends out several blocks. It incorporates not just the Capitol building, but also the House and Senate office buildings. Jimmy and I pulled up on the south side of the Capitol complex on, I believe it was D Street. And there's barricades that are set up that prevent vehicular traffic from traveling any further north. It was eerily quiet. I mean, if you've ever been on the Capitol grounds, you know that there's always a lot of pedestrian traffic, people out there, people, walking around. It's a busy place. And it was like a ghost town, at least on that portion of the Capitol. So we walked up on South Capitol Street, passing Longworth House Office Building. It wasn't until we got up to Independence Avenue that we saw, dozens upon dozens of police vehicles parked. We could see some of the exterior barricades, which was really just that bicycle rack fencing that a lot of people may have seen in some of the video from that day. It was toppled, abandoned by police officers. And there were thousands of people kind of milling about, yelling, chanting, saying things like 1776 and which side are you on, calling us traitors. We made our way through that group of individuals up towards the south side of the Capitol, entered the Capitol building from there. And once we got inside, we could see, officers that many of which looked like they had been engaged in some fighting. People were tired. We could see rioters, roaming through the hallways, yelling, screaming, carrying a variety of different.
What were they yelling and screaming?
Go ahead. More of the same.
Yeah.
Trump 2020, stop the steal, yelling out for members of Congress. Just dumb shit.
And what were they carrying? Some of the people at that point, what you saw?
Most of the people there were either wearing some type of military-styled clothing, whether it was camouflage gear. Some of them had on Kevlar helmets, Kevlar vests. There were quite a few people wearing politically inspired clothing, MAGA 2020, Trump 2020, things like that. Carrying flags. I saw all types of flags there. Everything from, Civil War era flags, to Trump inspired flags. Sure,
everything we saw. At that moment, did you know you were heading into violence? What was your instinct? What was your gut at that point?
At that point, I just thought, there's a bunch of jackasses that made their way into the Capitol complex and they're running around like morons.
Yeah.
I didn't see any violence until I got to the Lower West Terrace Tunnel.
So take us there. So now you go to
So Jimmy and I are walking through the Capitol building. We made our way to the crypt, which is directly in the center of the Capitol, just beneath the statuary hall. And I heard a distress call come out, a 1033 call from the Lower West Terrace Tunnel. And so Jimmy and I got our bearings and we made our way down to the Lower West Terrace Tunnel. Once I got there, that's when I realized, how serious this event really was. There were officers in there, only about, I would say 30, maybe 40 at the most. And they were fighting for their lives.
And how big was the crowd?
Yeah, I mean, it was on the other side of that group of 30 or 40 officers was roughly 10 to 15,000 individuals who were trying to make their way into the lower West Terrace entrance. The significance of that tunnel, that's where the President of the United States, or the President-elect, walks when he's going to take the oath of office at the inauguration. And so, again, we had about 30, 40 officers that were trying to hold back a crowd of thousands. And it was incredibly violent, and it was ugly.
Now, when you say violent, what was the violence that you were witnessing? The first kind of your first glimpse, you're there, you're kind of just trying to hold the line with 30 other heroic police officers. And when you say violence, what erupted? What did you see? As I said, we've seen different things on the body cam and we've seen footage, but I just want to hear it from you.
The first thing that I remember once I made it down this set of stairs that leads to the lower West Terrace tunnel, I saw a buddy of mine, Sergeant Bill Bogner, who's an administrative sergeant. He used to work in my district and then was transferred to the academy, but he's an administrative guy, and he had self-deployed. He couldn't see anything. He had been sprayed in the face with bear mace. And I remember telling him that I was here to help. And he told me that the guys that were out on the line, referring to those 30 or 40 officers out there, that they had been fighting for, the better part of an hour. I don't think he realized what time it was. In reality, they had been fighting for almost 2 hours, unrelieved, against, thousands of people. There was a set of double doors just beyond where Bill was standing, and I could see through the glass panes this residual of CS gas that was still lingering in the air. It was like a cloud of smoke. We had been deploying CS gas, but also members of the crowd had brought a variety of different types of chemical irritants that they were spraying against us. And what I later learned was there were actually individuals that had come with gloves and oven mitts so that they could pick up these gas canisters when we deployed them out to the crowd and throw them back, so that the tunnel was just filled with gas. I didn't have a gas mask. My partner, Jimmy, didn't bring his either. When I got into the tunnel, I saw Commander Ramey Kyle. Commander Kyle, at that time, was in charge of our criminal investigations division. So he was the head of our investigators, detectives units. He had also self-deployed that day. And he had taken command of the West Terrace defense and of that lower West Terrace tunnel. He was giving out commands to the officers that were there, trying to get them re-energized and back into the fight, trying to maintain some degree of organization and order in an incredibly chaotic environment.
And what was your first altercation, actual engagement with the crowd? What happened?
The first thing that I tried to do was offer assistance to the other officers that were in the tunnel. You could tell how fatigued officers were. They looked exhausted. A lot of them were just being held up by the other officers' body weight. And then as I made my way through the crowd to the front, the first thing that I attempted to do was close this set of double doors that led directly out to the West Terrace. I remember yelling out to these rioters in the crowd that we had injured officers and I just needed to get these doors shut, and all holy hell broke loose. I was face to face with dozens of guys dressed in military style gear, wearing gas masks that they had brought themselves, some that had been stripped from police officers. A lot of them had police gear that they had acquired, either was abandoned on the West Terrace or that they had stripped away from officers who were trying to prevent them from entering the Capitol. And they just started pushing forward. Yeah, I've described it before as like a medieval style battle because it wasn't so much throwing blows or striking individuals as it was just bodies pressed up against bodies and trying to use our own physical force and momentum to repel this onslaught of insurrectionists.
Did you think you were going to die at that moment?
I don't remember thinking that at that particular moment. The only thing that I could think about was, getting these people the hell out of this tunnel.
Yeah.
We started giving up quite a bit of ground initially. And I don't know how, but, that those 40 officers in there were able to summon the strength and start pushing back and repelling thousands of rioters. And we pushed them back through that set of double doors all the way out through the threshold of the tunnel. It was at that point that I was pulled by one of the rioters off the line from that group of officers out into the crowd. Now I remember it happened so quickly, and it was like getting knocked over by a wave and then just getting knocked down again and again and again until I was maybe 250, 300 feet out into the crowd away from the tunnel. I could hear people screaming out, I got one, we got one. Individuals started beating me from, every direction. I was getting hit with hard objects, fists. Some guys did grab a hold of my gun, and people were yelling out, get his gun, kill him with his gun. And then I remember being tasered over and over again, just at the base of my skull, the back of my neck, below my helmet. And it was excruciatingly painful. And I remember my biggest fear at that point was losing control of my weapon and having somebody take it away from me and use it against me. I did think about using deadly force. I thought about, specific members of the crowd who I felt had or were trying to kill me, and that I was justified in using that level of force against them. And I also quickly came to the conclusion that, drawing my weapon, it would have been stripped away from me and most likely used against me. My next option at that point was to try to appeal to someone in the crowd. And I remember yelling out that I had kids. Shortly after that, some members of the crowd did try to offer assistance. I remember people in the crowd literally fighting other members of the crowd to prevent them from continuing to assault me.
So it was, you really saw within the crowd the kind of division that's, there were, as disgusting as anybody was there were people there who were like, no, this is not okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, everyone understands mob mentality and getting caught up in that. But when you're face to face with killing an innocent person, which, at that point, I no longer posed any type of impediment to these individuals if they were trying to get into the Capitol building. It certainly wasn't me out there alone that was going to prevent them from doing that. So assaulting me and potentially or killing me was nothing other than murder. And I think there were people who realized that and fought to prevent that from happening. That being said, there were still individuals in the crowd that continued to assault me. But I did receive assistance, and eventually officers were able to get to me and pull me back into the tunnel.
Now you're in the tunnel and you're beaten, you're tasered, Do you remember your first thought at that moment? I mean, we just, as you're there and as you just kind of had lived through this hell, what went through your mind?
Well, the last thing that I remember was somebody in the crowd asking me which way I wanted to go. I told them I wanted to go back into the tunnel, back inside. Then I was unconscious.
That's it.
The next thing that I remember after that was waking up on my back. And I remember asking my partner, Jimmy Albright, who was standing over top of me, if we took the door back.
Well, that's what you're concerned about. That's why I call you an American hero. So you end up in the hospital, and you're watching the news in the hospital, and you're seeing commentators say certain things, and what do you do?
I remember it was the first time that I turned on CNN, probably in more than 5 years. I was a
Trump guy.
I was a loyal Fox News consumer.
Consumer's a good word. It's a good word.
Yeah. So I remember turning on CNN, and at that point, there was a kind of a narrative that was going around talking about how law enforcement had used a disproportionate amount of force at the Capitol than had been utilized over the summertime protests, and I was pissed. I remember listening to a lot of the commentators talk about how, there weren't very many arrests made at the Capitol complex compared to the amount of arrests that were made, obviously, over the summertime. And I was like scrolling through my phone trying to find a contact number for CNN so I could get a hold of somebody and curse them out. And that's what I was doing from my hospital bed. Eventually, I did get a hold of some CNN producers, and I was talking to people, and somehow I ended up getting a phone call from Don Lemon. And I had like a 3.5-hour conversation with him, just talking about the realities of January 6th. Trust me, we used a hell of a whole lot of force that day. We used every ounce of force that we had. And we didn't make a lot of arrests because we were fighting for our lives. There was no place to put them because there were no extra officers. This was not, what I would describe as the controlled chaos of the summertime protests. This was a completely out of control event in which police officers were really fighting for their lives, not just in defense of the Capitol complex and the members and staff members that were inside. They were fighting for their own lives.
I want to go to a moment a little further in the future where you had obviously seen all the footage, and you gave your testimony, and you've lived through this. But there was a moment you were sitting at a bar and you saw a bunch of images come up on television. You're amidst other people. Take me there. What happened?
I had, after January 6th, this particular watering hole that I frequented, it was me and a couple other officers. We were sitting there watching the Don Lemon show, and it was the first time that my body-worn camera footage had been aired publicly. I had seen it, probably 100 times. And not that I was numb to it, but I guess I had never seen it in a public setting where other people could experience it alongside of me, and I just became incredibly emotional. I broke down.
This was the first for 20 minutes. This was the first time you had witnessed it with other people around you, and you just let loose. Take me to what was going through your head during the hearings when certain Republican politicians were in some way suggesting that you were anything other than a hero, or were suggesting that there were theatrics involved, or I don't remember the exact words, or did you want to just leap out of your seat and go after these guys and go like, are you fucking kidding me, man? I mean, this was life and death.
Yeah, I mean, the thought has crossed my mind. But, I mean, I understand the theatrics of this, you know, really like the politicization of this whole situation. I mean, I don't know how you don't, like, I'm not trying to make this political. I'm not here to argue policy. I'm just simply telling the facts of what happened on January 6th. And if that happens to cause some degree of discomfort to Republicans, yeah, I don't give a shit. That's your fault. You know, you had an opportunity to embrace the realities of January 6th and you didn't do it, and you opted for, you know, cover up and a lie and whitewash the events of that day. You know, I don't understand. Well, I do understand that, because they've chosen their political futures over, you know, the future of this country.
Mike, I know you've had PTSD, and do you get in bed at night? Do you play this over and over in your head? How do you find I don't want to say a safe place for it, but a livable place to put this?
So I'm very much at peace with January 6th, the events of that day. I mean, I'm proud of the way that I performed, and I'm proud of the way that hundreds of other officers performed that day. And I'm also proud of everything that I've done since January 6th. I mean, January 6th was tough, but, you know, standing up in front of the entire country, I mean, at times in front of the whole world, and talking about not just the events of that day, but a lot of the struggles that I've had since then, it's been hard. It's a difficult thing to do. But I know that, you know, there's hundreds of other police officers from January 6th and really just hundreds of thousands of Americans that were traumatized by the events of that day. I mean, you didn't have to be there
Sure.
to experience the trauma of watching your fellow countrymen attack the Capitol building, calling for, you know, the hanging of political leaders or shooting Nancy Pelosi in the head, to feel traumatized by that day.
And we have the majority of a Republican Party that wants to kind of move on, nothing to see there. Michael, I ask my guests all the same question. I'm going to ask it and answer it. And I'm not even going to wait for your answer. I always say to people, what's your brand? And the Michael Fanone brand, as I said, is hero. And it's been a privilege to talk to you today. I'm glad you're back at work. I know it's not exactly where you want to be at work, but it's a step. And good health, good fortune. And we're lucky in this country to have you working for us.
Well, thank you so much. I do appreciate the opportunity, and hopefully I'll see you again soon.
You got it, man. Stay well. Hope you enjoyed today. It was a riveting interview with Fanone, and I wish him nothing but well in his new career as a commentator on CNN. Certainly safer, but we thank him for all his public service work. That's it for today's show. If you have any, remember to rate, review, and subscribe anywhere you listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, any place else. Please rate, review, or subscribe. And you can watch us on YouTube, and please rate and subscribe there and give us your comments on YouTube. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again next week on Brand. Everybody, thanks for watching. If you like it, hit that subscribe button. And we love having you here watching On Brand. And just don't miss any future episodes. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We'll see you next time.